Nothing is perennial, nothing is permanent. That holds true for policies as well. The statement, either you die as a hero or you live long enough to become a villain, has touched this intricate domain of government. Yes, there is utility for a particular policy at a particular point of time. But as soon as it is implemented, it starts to bring change throughout space and time. Few people get enriched from it while others end up at the other end of the spectrum. Those who become enriched are always in the majority, while most of the time this enrichment comes at the expense of the unfortunate ones who are not the direct beneficiary. That is, either their money in the form of tax which is used to pay for the populist schemes. After a fixed period of time, the scheme stands either at the verge of elimination or it needs to be tinkered with. Both actions are needed to save the relevance of the policy. It is time to do the same with much famous Pradhanmantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. Namaste and welcome to TFIPost. I'm your host Piyush. If you are watching us on YouTube, please subscribe and press the bell icon to get all the latest updates. If you are watching us on Facebook, do like, share and subscribe to the page. Recently, the Modi government decided to extend the PMGKAY for 3 more months. Now, the facility of free food grains under the scheme will be available till the end of December this year. The decision was taken in a cabinet meeting chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself. According to the Press Information Bureau, the extension of the scheme will cost 44,762 crore rupees to the state exchequer. Spending on 122 lakh metric tons will take the overall cost of the scheme from 3.45 lakh crore rupees to 3.91 lakh crore rupees for the centre. Meanwhile, the decision did not come with consensus. Reportedly, the Finance Ministry had said no to the proposal. Nirmala Sitharaman-led ministry is apprehensive about it turning into another one of those freebie schemes. An office memorandum from the Finance Ministry's Department of Expenditure read, "Continuation of this over a long period of time may give an impression of its permanent or indefinite continuation and make it difficult to stop. Hence, terminating the scheme on September 30th, 2022 is advisable. As such, the proposal is not supported." The Finance Ministry's disagreement with the order clearly indicates that it is not an economically wise decision. The ministry has access to the best sources of data and its recommendations did not come out of thin air. If you look at the interplay of GDP growth rate, impact of PMGKAY on economy, job growth, crop estimation for the year, and people's income, the picture will get clearer. First, let's have a brief look at the PMGKAY. The scheme was the need of the hour during the pandemic. In March 2020, the Modi government announced that it will be providing extra rations to more than 80 crore Indians. The food security scheme was named Pradhanmantri Garib Kalyan Yojana or PMGKAY. The scheme ensured that every needy person in the country would avail 5 kg of food grains per month. This extra ration was available to those who were already registered beneficiaries under the National Food Security Act. Initially, the scheme was considered a waste since 67% of the population was already covered under the National Food Security Act. An extra scheme was considered futile. But later experts revealed that PMGKAY was the main reason behind millions of Indians not sliding down to the level below extreme poverty. The scheme performed brilliantly at first and helped India revive its economy by ensuring that people's savings remained intact. However, after 18 months, demand for doing away with the scheme started to gain momentum. The reason was that India's economic growth had started to clock double digits. But the government was apprehensive about discontinuing it. It had its own reasons as well. Factory output had just started to get momentum and people were just getting updated with their new routines. But negativity about COVID was still in the air and the government wanted to ensure its population that it would be there for them in times of need. Additionally, Global headwinds in the wake of Ukraine-Russia crisis made the government more skeptical about discontinuing it. Needless to say, it was also not politically expedient, so the government kept extending it. But times have changed now, and times have changed because numbers have changed. When the scheme was introduced, FCI godowns were so full that leakage, wastage, and pilferage were problems, but never the availability of grains. Times have changed. In fact, it started to change way back in February and March. At that time, India emerged as the saving grace of the world and exported wheat to developed as well as underdeveloped nations. The increased demand of made in India wheat transformed into India exporting 70 million tons of wheat to the world. It was over and above feeding our people under PMGKAY and NFSA. But the happiness was short-lived. Poor monsoons started to affect Indian crop production estimates. In that scenario, hoarding of Indian wheat by China meant that India had to halt wheat exports. At home, the government cut the quota of wheat being allocated to beneficiaries as well. To revive the food grain stocks, the government put a lot of efforts to revive seed sowing and cultivation as well, but could not bring much change to the godowns. Government's own estimates present a relatively grim picture of crop availability in the country. According to latest estimates, rice production in the financial year of 2022-23 will fall down by 6% from 111.76 metric tons to 104.99 metric tons. Not just rice, noticeable decline is being observed in cultivation of other crops as well. Total food grain capacity for this year will decline by 4%. Numbers are grimmer in subsections of crops as well. Production of Kharif coarse grain is slated to fall down by 28%. If these numbers are not good enough to convince the government, then record growth in GDP should. Few weeks ago, India registered a record 13.5% growth in GDP. Analysts say that India is the only major economy whose chances of getting stuck in recession is zero. We just pushed back our former colonizers to 6th position on the economic ladder. Indian consumers have restarted consuming market products on mass scale. Yes, it is true that for now the upper and upper middle class are driving this growth, but it is only a matter of time before the phenomenon percolates down the economic ladder. Proof of the pudding lies in the fact that Manrega, one of the biggest enablers of rural consumption, is witnessing an increase in its demand. The government said that compared to August 2022, the demand for Manrega jobs increased by 5% in September 2022. The numbers are expected to increase since people are now looking to shift away from farm jobs, which they took up during COVID times due to lack of options. These numbers only raise the questions over the veracity of reasons behind the extension of the policy. Apparently, increasing income should mean that people do not require free food anymore. But the question is whether it needs to be rationalized or should be done away with totally. To be honest, it needs more rationalization than removal. Demands have picked up momentum, but not to their full capacity. It only indicates that there are millions of people who need more assistance in the form of incentives. It would benefit if a concept such as creamy layer gets introduced in the policy. Those who have benefited from it should be removed from the beneficiary list, while those who need it the most must be provided with extra food. Even an increase in allotment would be good in case the beneficiary is below the poverty line. Alternatively, a campaign where PM Modi himself comes up with an appeal to people about voluntarily leaving the scheme would also help. It helped in the case of LPG subsidies. There is no reason to believe that it won't work here.